I don't like MMOs, but I would play the heck out of a Trails MMO. Let's talk about why. Hey friends, it's Just the Gems. I'm Brandon, and I've talked a little bit before on this channel about MMOs and how they are just really not my thing. I have given Final Fantasy XIV, for example, 3 separate tries. I really wanted it to hook me because I've heard all of you and others who have said like the story is amazing. You just have to get through, X number of hours before it starts to get good. I've tried so many times, but the gameplay loop, the world, nothing in there is really hooking me. I've just kind of given up on MMOs, but the other day I was idly thinking, as I do so much of the time, and it occurred to me the way that I could possibly break through that MMO barrier, find an MMO that works for me, would be if there was a Trails MMO. If Falcom provided us an entry into the world of Zemuria that we could go and freely explore, that would be everything that I've ever wanted in that kind of game. That, for me, would fulfill the purpose of that kind of game, right? Now, I don't think that this sort of MMO should happen before the series has finished, right? They're coming up on the end here. I don't know how many more games we have, maybe 4 more titles before they've wrapped it all up completely. I don't think an MMO should start before the game series ends, right? We should wait till Trails is over and then have this MMO as a celebration, right? But what better way to celebrate the end of this 2 decades plus of video game brilliance than with an MMO that just opens the entire world for us all to explore. Anyway, let's talk a little bit more about all that. Why don't we? I think to begin, it makes sense for me to tell you all a little bit about why I don't connect with MMOs. Every time I've tried, every effort that I've put into connecting with an MMO has failed. And there are some reasons why I think that's the case. The first reason is that the random and honestly kind of goofy nature of questing and leveling up in these games just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't work. There's no narrative driving most of that, right? So you begin in an MMO, even one like Final Fantasy XIV, which is like the premier MMO, right? In terms of how brilliantly it's crafted and like all the things you can do and how much the player base loves it. Final Fantasy XIV drops you into the world, you create a character, and you have to run around and do various silly quests. I'm sorry, but you have to go and kill a few goblins and get their, loincloths or whatever, and bring them back to the quest giver, and you get 200 experience points, and hey, you leveled up. Okay, great. Now you're going to go and talk to the person again and get the next quest, and you're going to go out and get 5 coconuts and bring them back. It's just not, there's nothing fun about that to me, right? It might be fun to you, like the progress of leveling up and seeing your character get stronger and getting new gear. If that's what you're into, if that's the thing that drives you to play these games, more power to you. I'm just saying it doesn't drive me, right? There's no narrative reason behind most of these early game quests in MMOs. Now, I don't doubt that as the game progresses, those sorts of quests become de-emphasized and you have a lot more focus on the big, broader, overarching story of the game. I've just never been able to get there because of all of the stuff that's front-loaded. They took the worst material in the game and they front-loaded. That makes no sense to me. So that's reason number 1 why I've never been able to connect with MMOs. And the other reason, I think this is maybe even the biggest reason of them all, is that I have personally never been able to really connect with video games or stories in general that have a basic fantasy, high fantasy, or even basic sci-fi setting. It's difficult for me to feel at home in that kind of world. I've said before that the basic high fantasy setting feels to me like creating a story from a template. You start with all of these pre-existing ideas, goblins, orcs, all the D&D and Tolkien stuff, right? You have all this stuff that's been pre-created for you, and you're just kind of putting in a few elements of your own and crafting a story around those things. I don't enjoy that. I'm primarily I consider myself a storyteller. I'm a writer. To me, that setting it doesn't feel imaginative to me in the way that I'm sure it does to many of you, right? And I'm not trying to discredit it as a storytelling genre. It's fine if you like it. I think that's great. But for me, it's just always felt kind of rote, kind of played out. It's using pieces that already exist. And I would much rather see something that's more original, cobbled together from other things, right, than just like orcs and elves and things like that. And sci-fi as well. I tend to be a little more lenient on sci-fi just because I had a preference for that, especially when I was younger. But even now, like basic sci-fi is just doesn't really cut it for me. Like I tried to get into Mass Effect, which feels like a little more of a traditional Western sci-fi kind of story. I played most of the first Mass Effect. It was okay to me. I don't know. I wasn't compelled to keep going. And that's like one of the premier, and it's not an MMO, but you know what I mean? Like just the setting, right? And, like you have something like the Star Wars, was it Galaxies was the MMO for a while? I think Galaxies was that the first? There may be more than one Star Wars MMO. There was like the Old Republic, I think, as well. But that to me is a much more interesting sort of setting for an MMO, right? Like Star Wars in general is not really science fiction in that traditional basic sense. I would call it more like science fantasy. And even just the fact that you're kind of combining the fantasy and the science fiction with Star Wars already makes it immensely more interesting to me than just a basic science fiction. So why would I play a Trails MMO then? With those things in mind, here's the ways that I think that a Trails MMO would address those, what I consider to be shortcomings, deficiencies. The first thing out of the gate, the kind of random and goofy nature of a lot of the especially early game quests, I think narratively that is solved by many of the character classes and jobs that no doubt would be present in a Trails MMO. In the Trails universe, if you're not aware, and if you aren't and you're watching this, hey, thanks for checking it out, appreciate you. But in the Trails universe, you have various groups that their very reason for existing is doing those sorts of random things, right? You have the bracers, who are kind of like work for hire mercenaries that will, do whatever a client needs them to do for money, so long as it's, aligned to good, right? And then you have like the Spriggan idea with like Van the Spriggan in the Daybreak arc. He does kind of work for hire, random stuff for people, kind of regardless of whether it's good or bad, right? In Crossbell, you have the SSS, the Special Support Section, that is basically a unit of the police force that is doing what bracers do, right? They're solving these random miscellaneous problems for the citizenry. So right out of the gate, right, you have a world that accommodates this sort of weird, kind of goofy, random questing. And it doesn't feel disparate. It doesn't feel like it doesn't fit, because we already know, as fans of the Trail series for decades now, this series has been going on, we already know that that's a thing in this world. So if we step into the role of a bracer, if we create a character who is going to be a bracer, we know what we're in for and we expect it. And actually, we might even look forward to it because it matches our expectations and it knows it's what we know we want to do. We know we're signing up for, right? We know we want to do this. Now, obviously the other big thing is the setting, right? And Trails is possibly my favorite fantasy sci-fi setting, my favorite setting in general in a story in maybe my lifetime. I don't know. The world of Zemuria is so interesting to me. What you have is essentially a world that 50 years before the start of the series was more or less like a medieval society, right? They were extremely low tech. And then there's this enormous revolution in technology brought about by orb mints and all the, everything involved with that, which I'm not going to go into here because that's a whole other video. But you have this like technological and industrial revolution that takes place over the next 50 years. And then even as the series begins, you see it progressing at just a ridiculous rate, right? Like you have airships in the first arc, and then you start to see like cars and vacuum cleaners and televisions, and you get into the Daybreak series and you're seeing virtual reality and just like technology that is already beyond where we are in the real world. That's just how fast that their society is developing. And there's a whole lot of mystery around that, the Orbal Revolution, and I think that's super interesting, something that's definitely going to be explored as the series comes to an end. But that setting, to me, is just so incredibly interesting. Like, it is so different from any other fantasy, sci-fi, whatever game or movie or TV series out there. It's unique. It's the parts that make it up. You could argue they're not unique in and of themselves, right? But there's very little in the world of creativity that is wholly, completely unique, right? The uniqueness, the creativity comes from taking existing ideas that have been had by people over thousands of years and documented and putting them together in interesting ways. So this is something that is just wholly created by Falcom from, you could say, existing pieces of our world and some from a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of sci-fi. It's all kind of put together into this world, and it just makes it so interesting and incredible. I am ready to jump into that world. I am ready to go on fetch quests to level up and rank up in my class or whatever. I'm ready to do that because I want to be in this world. I want to experience the story with other people who love it, right? Being in an MMO, that's the other big thing about an MMO, is that it's massively multiplayer. So you've got other people, other fans that are there experiencing the world with you. And I think that would be so cool to be in that world and be able to interact with other people, maybe even role play, which I know some people do when they play MMOs, right? You actually role play as your character, like in a D&D sort of thing. That could be fun too. There are so many possibilities, and I would love to see it. So as I already kind of alluded to before, Trails has the benefit of having an existing established world that has been constructed over the last 2 decades at this point to be something so massive and so detailed with so much lore and history to it. It's frankly pretty incredible. And by the time the series is done, we're going to have even more lore piled on, because I have a feeling that the next several games are going to be pretty lore heavy. If they are truly wrapping this up in the next several games, as they say they are, they have a lot that they need to answer and a lot of mysteries that they need to solve. So we're going to have so much lore available to us. And for a game, an MMO, to start with just that enormous treasure chest of history and lore and mystery and intrigue is incredible. No other game, no other MMO, maybe with the exception of Star Wars, would be able to argue it has that coming right out of the gate. For another thing, that world that's been established already has, various nations and classes and jobs. There's a setup in there for you to create a character that can do a variety of different things and come from a variety of different backgrounds and be able to, tell a compelling story and provide a lot of interest and intrigue and fun for you as a player. Like, you could become a bracer, you could join the police force, maybe in a special support section sort of capacity. You could be a student, like in the Cold Steel series. Maybe you could even start your own Spriggan service or whatever if you wanted to take on jobs that were out of the bounds of a bracer, right? Imagine being able to start your own Spriggan service and have people work for you. I'm thinking pretty grandiose, right? I'm thinking an economy. I'm thinking there's no reason that we couldn't have the world of Zemuria just be as real as it possibly could be, right? There are MMOs out there that have developed economies and have people essentially kind of run their job in the game, right? They have companies and they have there's no reason that this couldn't happen, because this world, the world of Zemuria, the world of Trails, is rich enough to handle that. I also think too, a lot of MMOs kind of pride themselves on having big events, right, that take place across the entire game world, and multiple, millions of people or whatever participate in these big events. The Trail series already has several big events that they could replicate within the game, right? They could do, it wouldn't obviously be part of an ongoing story. It would maybe be something a flashback to events throughout Zemurian history. So you have the 100 Days War or Operation Mille Mirage. There are these events that they could kind of recreate in the game and allow you as a player to participate in them in a way that you never would have via the normal console games. And beyond those kind of flashback into history sorts of events, there's so many opportunities with all of the existing nations and the conflicts that sort of exist between them already, the mysteries of the Septian Church. You could create all sorts of new big worldwide events that would involve everyone pretty regularly, and I think you would struggle to run out of ideas for making these compelling. I think, though, for me, the most compelling reason to create a Trails MMO is just the idea of Zemuria being a vast open world that I can just explore, that I can start out in Roland down in Liberl, and I can just walk the length of the kingdom and cross over into Erebonia and explore Erebonia, go up to, Northumbria, stop over by the Jirai Special Economic Zone. Why not, Head over to Crossbell, go to Calvard, there are so many well-established places that we've seen quite a lot of, right? Especially Liberl. We've seen most of Liberl, and big chunks of Erebonia we've seen, good chunks of Calvard we've seen, all of Crossbell, obviously. But there are a lot of places within the nations that we visited that we haven't seen, and there are even more nations out there that we haven't seen really at all in a game setting, right? Like Northumbria, there was the Northern War anime that took place in Northumbria. Parts of it took place in Northumbria. So we sort of have some experience seeing that. The Jirai Special Economic Zone, like little flashbacks in the Cold Steel series, you see a little bit of that, but you're not really getting to explore these places. Remiferia, I know the Akatsuki no Kiseki, the browser-based Trails game that shut down a couple years ago, that was only in Japan. I think you technically got to go to Remiferia in that game, but that was not really canon, and we never got it. So I would say that we haven't got to experience Remiferia, and we've met people from Remiferia throughout the course of the main series. It would be cool to explore that. And as the map continues to expand, as we see what's to the east of Calvard, I'll be even more curious to learn more about those places. And if you're familiar with the Trails lore, the kind of desertification that's happening from the east moving west as things are dying. And it could be that by the end of the Trails series, that issue is resolved and maybe the world is even bigger than we thought it was. Who's to say? But just the idea of being able to seamlessly move from one kingdom to another and just explore and see this world. That to me is everything that I would want in a celebration of the Trails series. Now, the big question is, how are they going to make this? So do I think that Falcom should develop an MMO when they finish the Trails series? No, I absolutely don't think that Falcom should develop an MMO. Largely because A, they don't have experience developing an MMO, especially to the scale that I'm conceiving, but also because they're a small team, and I think you just need a bigger team to make a game of that scale. And also, I would rather they use their limited resources towards other things, the console and PC experiences that we've had from them. The East series, maybe bring back Tokyo Xanadu, keep going with that, create whatever is the next turn-based JRPG series that they're going to work on after Trails. I want them to focus on what they do best. So I really think that it makes the most sense for some outside studio or studios to do the actual development of the Trails MMO. However, Falcom should absolutely be involved in the process, right? On the creative side of things. Providing the lore, the history, the creative direction, the story. That is what I want Falcom involved. The mechanics of making the game, the nuts and bolts that make it run. I feel like there are a lot of competent studios out there that would be able to do that. Studios who are built around the idea of creating massively multiplayer online role-playing games. So leave the hard work of creating an MMO to the people that are best suited to it, and leave the work of story and lore to the people who gave us the Trail series in the first place. I know some of you are going to comment or have already commented how unlikely this is to happen because of, just the technical requirements of building a world of this size and the difficulty of getting a new MMO off the ground in general. Everybody is playing Final Fantasy XIV. Who has time, right? Who has the time and the money to invest in another MMO? If you're not going to give up Final Fantasy XIV, what are you going to do? You can't play both. You're not going to play both. So I get it. I understand that what I'm describing seems really unlikely, and there are so many ways that it could go wrong. But I just want to say this video is just kind of me fantasizing about how cool this would be. So what I'm trying to do is just imagine the other possibility. Rather than what all could go wrong, I'm just trying to think what could go right. How could it go amazingly? And in this kind of perfect world that I'm envisioning, we get the MMO based on the Trail series that mean, everybody who is a fan of the series would love. It's a dream, but I think it's a nice dream, and it's one I'd like to continue having. What do you think? Do you think the Trails series would be well suited for the MMO treatment? Do you have any ideas, things that I didn't cover in this video that would make it particularly well suited to the MMO treatment? Let me know down in the comments. If you disagree, let me know down in the comments as well. That's fine. I'm not really providing the other side of the argument because I feel so strongly about my side of the argument, but there is definitely a valid other side to this argument about why it wouldn't be a good idea. So if you have thoughts in that direction, put them down below so we can see. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks to everyone who has subscribed to the channel. I really, really appreciate you all. We're driving to 20K, I guess, which is insane to me. I don't know whether it's possible to get to 20K before the end of the year. Probably not, but I mean, stranger things have happened. So, if you like my videos, if you want to support the channel, please consider subscribing if you're not already. It just would really help me out a lot. Thanks as always to my members. I really appreciate your support. If you are not a member and you want to support me and the channel in that way, just click the link down below for more information. Really appreciate it. Also check out my podcast, the JRPG Pursuit. We put out new episodes about JRPGs every single Wednesday. The link is in the description. Anyway, with all that, until next time. Bye.